Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CKC channel. I'm your host, FIDE Master Calvin Klaassen, and welcome to another episode of Reflection Season 4. Yes, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to press the follow button. In about 20 minutes' time, we will be taking your questions live to our special guest. Tonight's special guest is a former president of Zimbabwe Chess Federation and a chess columnist and an Olympiad player. And yes, I think tonight will be very, very interesting. We're going a bit back into time, and I'll allow Dr. Boa to do the proper introduction. So over to Dr. Boa.
Thank you very much, Calvin, and good evening to the viewers, and good evening to our guest tonight, Mr. Victor Strugo, somebody that I recently met for the first time around about November this year, but somebody that I've actually known for quite some time because, Mr. Strugo, I remember, of course, you were writing in the South African Chess Player magazine, the little green book that used to come out back in the day, and my recollection is Letter from Europe type of thing that used to come out, and then, of course, your games and your comments on there. But Victor, it's been thank you very much for agreeing to be part of the show tonight and just to share some of your reflections with us tonight. Welcome, Victor.
Thanks very much, Lyndon. Yeah, I must say that they're ancient reflections, but hopefully they still have a bit of shine on them.
No, I'm sure they will be. Now, one of the things that was interesting to me, Victor, when I was reading up on you a bit, is born in Egypt.
Yeah.
And how did that come about?
Well, don't you know the facts of life?
Thanks. So the facts of life.
Seriously, I mean, yeah. You think sort of citizen of the world or multicultural is the sort of new order, but it existed a long time ago. I was born of a French mother, an Italian father, whose parents themselves were Spanish, Greek, Turkish, and Moroccan, all lived in Egypt. And I ended up in an English-speaking country working for a German company and then moved to South Africa. So you're getting a mixed bag tonight.
No. Well, and I think that is what the show is about, to hear about the different things in South African chess. And I want to use the term Southern African chess, because one of the things that the viewers may not know is that in the early days, and here I refer to probably 1947, 1950, there was a Southern African Chess Federation of sorts, and you used to see tournaments in Mozambique and see tournaments in Rhodesia at that stage, and of course South Africa. But Victor, we'll get to that part in a moment. Who taught you to play chess?
I was given a chess set as a gift for around my 9th birthday or so, and there was a schoolmate who actually just taught me the moves. But like when you used to finish your homework and go around to your friends, you'd just sort of play Monopoly or chess or whatever. It wasn't really chess. And then in about Form 4 at school, which will be about what, standard 9 here, we a good friend of mine who was a reasonable player started a chess club, and I thought, oh, okay, he wants people to join. I let me get going, and I found that at that point it kindled my interest that this was not just a play game, but something real. And those were the days of Rhodesian sanctions, so there weren't that many books available in the bookshops. And my first, I hate to call him teacher, was Fred Reinfeldt, a couple of those very undetailed books. And so I basically started playing late 1969. Brian Donnelly came to give a simul at my school and beat us all up. And I thought, jeepers, he can play 20 games. No, there's obviously something mental here. And I kind of got hooked. The following year, we put in a league team. We had to play in school uniform in the adult league. And there were 3 schools that became quite prominent. I was the one called Mount Pleasant. There was a school called Prince Edward. And in those days, there were still sort of separate communities. And the Indian school, Morgan High, was always the strongest of the Rhodesian school teams. Board 1, D Gulab, board 2, V Gulab, board 3, P. Gulab and the two senior brothers, S. Gulab and A. Gulab, had already left school. But when the five of them arrived for tournaments, you thought, whoa, this is kind of, you know, the chess mafia coming in. But Vijay and I actually jointly won the Rhodesian schools in 1971. I've been playing for about a year and a half, and the Rhodesian schools, and we got to an invite to SA schools, which was interesting because obviously there was apartheid in those days, and we had to go to huge steps to get. And the Cape Town Chess Club, it was played in the old Claremont Club at Rondebosch Station. And it was a great adventure for us both. But Vijay had to sort of get special dispensations and whatever. And the club was really helpful, and the federation in getting him to come. But it went without any incident. It was the year that Constantine Papafortiu won it. And Vijay actually finished half a point ahead of me, so I didn't forgive him for that.
So in 1961, you guys were already playing within South African tournaments. I mean, at school level, it's a very significant time as well.
I know I'm old, but not
71.
Yeah.
No, and did you play in other SA school events, or I mean, Zimbabwean school events at that stage? You were nearly completing school.
Yeah, it was my last year of school, so I'd won the SA school, the Rhodesian schools in 71, tied with Vijay, and then we played in SA schools, and then I went to university, and you know, I didn't really get a chance to play in South African events until I'd qualified in pharmacy, and I got a job as a lecturer actually at the university in Zim, and so I was able to try and fit tournaments into my leave, and I started playing in the Twins in 1977, I think. Yeah.
Now, Victor, if would you say there was a Bobby Fischer effect in '72 in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, big effect. And of course, the newspapers were kind of, we didn't have a chess columnist up there. So it was sort of off Reuters or whatever press telex line telegraphing the moves in. And if you were lucky, you got a correct game score without misprints, and had to reconstruct the rest of the game, and maybe pop into the bookshop when they received the Sunday Times or a British paper, and sort of pretend that you were going to buy it, and quickly check the chess column and see, oh, that's what the 43rd move was meant to be. Let me go back to my board and the game.
Okay.
And our journalists used to say things like, White gave check 3 times, but Black won. You know, really knowledgeable.
No, understood. Now, at that stage, of course, Zimbabwe was still known as Rhodesia, if I'm not mistaken. And so, how did it come about that you assisted in the formation of the Zimbabwean Chess Association?
I basically, because I'm the kind of gullible guy who can be conned into organizing things and committees and whatever. So the first thing was that the Salisbury Club, now Harare, conned me into being captain of play one year. And then they said, well, since you're handling the league well, why don't you take over chairmanship of the club? And from that, it was a step to the National Federation, because I mean, there were only about 4 or 5 clubs in the whole country. And when political change was coming, and some of the, shall we say, older, more conservative people were dragging their feet about embracing the future, I thought, well, let me take on this position, because maybe I can make a difference. And so I was, this is where it helps having a university job, because you can sort of flexi time your other interests into your life. And first of all, I organized the inaugural Zimbabwe Open for January 1980, although the country wasn't yet Zimbabwe. I wrote to FIDE and I said, look, change is coming. Lancaster House is finished. There'll be elections in April. And if we wait until April to apply to you, which is what the old organizers were proposing, we'll be too late for 1980 Olympiad, and we can only get into FIDE in time for 82. So I wrote to Fredrik Olafsson, and he put it to the council, and they admitted Zimbabwe in late February or early March, actually, so that we knew that we would be sending a team. And in fact, we also immediately jumped in and started sending players to the World Juniors.
Okay, so I mean, that was very significant because that was the first time that Zimbabwe would be participating in the chess Olympiads.
Yes, but not the first time for Rhodesia, because Rhodesia had played in Siegen in 1970, and then in Skopje 72 they couldn't play because it was an Eastern Bloc country, but they played in Nice in 1980, the one where South Africa was and Rhodesia were both disqualified or voted out of FIDE, and South Africa withdrew in protest, I think about 7 or 8 rounds into the final group, but Rhodesia won final group E. And then we put together a team in 1980, and my vice president, Charles Kuwaza, who I think you may know his name, he eventually became quite prominent in one of the ministerial offices before his very sad end. And he was the first black player to represent the country. He played board 5 in Malta.
Now, no, thank you very much for that. So Siegen, 1970, that's of course very famous for the Spassky Fischer game, a Grunfeld that came from that Olympiad. And then of course 74 was the one in Nice where South Africa got sort of suspended till 92. Now, thinking back to 1980, and I think about the Soviet team, I mean, that was Kasparov, Karpov. I mean, those guys were legends. I mean, everyone was a Soviet champion and a world champion or candidate.
There was Tal, Pologaevsky, Balashov was the lowest board, and Korchnoi, I think, yeah.
So, no, I don't think Korchnoi would have played in 1988.
No, he didn't. You're right. It was Karpov.
Kasparov played in 80, I think.
Geller.
Okay, Keller on that side. But I mean, and so you guys were, who were your sort of more illustrious countries that you played against in 1980?
Round one, we played against Spain. So it's the Giants versus the Minions. And I am board 2. Brian Donnelly ducked that match because he was interested in board score. So John Bowler played 1. I played 2. He played Pomar, and I played Juan Bellon, who later I think married Pierre Cramer.
Yes,
and
that's right.
After 14 moves, I think I'm doing all right here. Good. And then he creates a threat, which is a complete and utter blunder. And I could have pseudo-sacked a queen, won a pawn, doubled his C pawns, doubled his F pawns in a simple combination, which I would have seen against any club player, but because I was playing a grandmaster, I was blind to it. So I missed the chance of it. And afterwards, he said to me, "You know, you missed the win." I kind of went, well, let me put it this way. If I'd won, I might have given up my career and taken up chess and died in absolute poverty because I wouldn't have got anywhere. But as it turned out, I would have at least had one famous moment.
Yeah, well, at least a famous moment there with Spain, Zimbabwe there, a pairing that came through. And so who won the first Zimbabwe?
Sorry, so we played a couple of other countries that were fairly strong. Indonesia, I think I was the only player to draw against Indonesia. And against Syria, I was outplayed by a guy who was too busy. He was wearing a smart suit and very handsome chap, and he was busy showing off, catching the eye of one of the comely lasses from the Norway women's team, and getting up between moves when I was sweating to explain to her how his brilliant play was defeating this patzer. And I managed to swindle him. So at the end of it, she just sort of looked at him, shook her head, and walked away. So he didn't get his date that night.
No. Those are good stories on that side. And when you guys came back, how did you build from that? Because I mean, it's fantastic now. Zimbabwe is went to play. Charles is also in the team. What did you? Because I mean, one of the things that I've noticed about Zimbabwe is that later on, I mean, Zimbabwe had Robert Gwazi, who became African champion in 2007. But I mean, to get to that level, there must have been a foundation that would have been built prior to that type of thing. What do you think would have been the success of that foundation?
The fact that when the new government came in, by the time we played the 1981 Open, President Kane Banana actually opened the tournament. We had made contact with the Minister of Youth, Sports and Recreation to say, you know, you're funding all these sports. Chess is a sport. And said, no, chess is not a sport. It was a lady minister, and we had to explain that it is and that it should qualify for funding. We got nothing in 1981, but what we managed to get from profits from tournaments and the odd donation, registration, a part of the registration fee for league teams after the clubs had paid their rent, we put into trying to stimulate interest in schools that previously had nothing. For example, there was a guy called Lionel Katz who had a factory, and he actually created a glass and timber factory. He created molds to make chess men out of fiberglass rather than wood. And he donated hundreds of chess sets to needy schools.
Okay.
But the actual
Victor,
players, yeah, sorry.
No. So what Zimbabwean success? I'm thinking now. Even later on, you had players like Rodwell Makoto that came through, but also prior to that, I mean, you had a lot of strong Zimbabwean players that would have been playing in the late 90s and early 2000s. So did you guys have a regular Zimbabwean Open after this? And did you guys have leagues in Zimbabwe?
Well, I left Zim in '82 because I got a job in Johannesburg. So I was gone by then, and I met up with the team in Lucerne 1982 Olympiad, and then again 1984 Olympiad in Thessaloniki. And so I kept in touch with them, and they'd finally started to get some funding, and there were more young black players coming into the sort of chess sphere. And I can't remember who was the first they managed to send to a World Junior, but by that stage I was kind of caught up in the career in South Africa, and I was following what you were following in the press because I was no longer there. But I mean,
sure.
the beginning was very slow and very painful because of total lack of funds.
Okay, of course, no, understandably so. I think if I'm not mistaken, Kudzinai Mamombe may have been the first Zimbabwean IM, because I recall him winning a African Junior sort of early years, 91 or 90. Could that be correct in your recollection?
As far as I know, yes. I mean, there were younger players. There were young players in the 80s, but none of them actually reached title standards. And the names that I recognize, I mean, I look at the Zimbabwe top 100 in FIDE on the internet, and apart from the title players whose names have become known, none of the others are even familiar to me. It's
okay.
If you think 1982 is 40 years ago. Huh?
Yeah. Now, Victor, if we look at the modern day things, who do you think who is your favorite Zimbabwean player at the moment?
I haven't seen enough games to say, to be honest. But you know, I was out of chess until COVID, basically. Until retirement, I decided I retired in 2017, and in the 80s when I arrived here, okay, just fast forward, I played in a few league games. I played in a decreasing number of South African tournaments because Korea kind of absorbed me completely. And then when I moved from the pharmaceutical industry to my own consultancy, it basically took over my life. So apart from a subscription to New in Chess, which was never more than half page through, there was no chess in my life. And then retirement, I was determined that I would get back into chess. When COVID came, we started organizing online stuff in 2020. And with my partial move to France, I registered. I'm actually not registered as with the SA Federation now, but with the French Federation. And I played one rapid tournament just before COVID started in my region here in Eastern France, and a few league games. And gradually, with the COVID lockdown, started to sort of surf the web to look for games here and there. But there's so much catch up to do that I honestly haven't seen many games by the Zim players.
Sure. No, understandable. And look, there's a number of Zim players doing great stuff. I mean, Rodwell Makoto has won a SA championship. Robert Gwazi has won an SA championship. And of course, Mandija Farai there in New York is doing great stuff as well. And not forgetting here in Cape Town, you even have Ruben Salimo and Amini Daud doing many things. But when South Africa plays Zimbabwe, who do you support at the Olympiad?
The best moves.
That's a good answer on that side. Victor, now growing up, you mentioned Fred Reinfeldt. Which other authors would you think inspired you?
Well, Fred Reinfeldt nearly expired me. I gave him up pretty quickly. I mean, eventually, I on holidays to South Africa, and when I came to play in the SA schools, and I discovered real bookshops with plenty of stocks. And then obviously SA chess player, you mentioned I wrote a lot for Leonard's magazine. I was paid in kind. I'd accumulate the value for a tournament report or for my monthly international scene, and trade those as barter against books. So that's how I built up my library. But I don't know. I tend to be kind of obviously I studied openings a lot when I was playing actively, but favorite authors, I think Erber's chess Road to Chess Mastery and whatever, and those books, Znotko Borovsky on the middle game. There were so many in those days that I guess nowadays nobody even opens it because everything is sort of an ebook. And I had at least 200 or 300 chess books, and the tournament books were my favorites, and the collections of games. I probably stopped collecting well before Kasparov brought out his great
fighting chess
series.
Yeah. But, no, thanks for that, Victor. Now, which of the chess players, would you say has influenced your play?
I've admired them all and emulated none of them. I don't think I can't even say that I think I've got a particular style. I mean, obviously, I love the aesthetics of the game, and combinations and so on, but mine always have a flaw. Being scientific in my education, I love the precision of endgames as well, but I always end up having to scramble or swindle in the ending. So I think I have an admiration for everything from Tal sacrifices to Smyslov endings to Kasparov fighting spirit and so on. But I have a ringside seat.
Understood, understood. So basically, you admire the chess that was played and so forth. Now, but I mean, how did it come the Alekhines defense? Because I saw quite a few games. There was it the 13th game of the 72 World Championship that inspired you.
No, I've been playing the Alekhine since much earlier. I started with the Caro-Kann in the early 70s, and then I discovered the Alekhine. I thought it was quirky and sharp and easy for white to trip up. And I guess the Bagirov books were part of my staple diet in those days. There was an excellent book by Hort as well, and I just liked the double-edged sort of volatility of the Alekhine, for the same reason that I absolutely dread the London system that is so popular now because Carlsen plays it, because it's so blooming stodgy.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I've actually also been reviewing some of my Alekhine games, and you are right. There's double-edged written all over it. Sometimes you're winning, and sometimes you can be clobbered there with a knockout blow at some stage very early as well. But be that as it may, to each his own. But I'm surprised that you played the Caro-Kann when you were still a young man, because they normally say you keep that for your old age.
Yeah, well, I mean, the prodigies now are playing it as 17, 18-year-olds, but yeah, I think I took it up because I thought, well, I need something solid because I don't know enough about chess, and it looks solid to me. But I played one game where I managed to get mated in 8 moves, and I decided, no, this one's not for me. It's just I don't feel. It's like having a right-handed glove on your left hand. It wasn't.
Yeah, no. Understood. Now, Victor, just a question before we check if there are any questions from the audience. Yeah. Those posters behind you, is that a Malta 1980 poster?
That one is Malta 1980, correct? And the one on that side is Thessaloniki 84, where I met up with a whole bunch of South Africans who were determined to obviously South Africa wasn't playing, but people like Darryl and Mark Grubery and Mark Levitt, Tim Kitt, and a couple of others were there. Eddie Price was there as a delegate from the suspended SHS Federation, and it was just another opportunity to visit an Olympiad because it coincided with one of my business trips, and I could tag a few days of leave onto the end. So that was my last Olympiad experience, if you like.
Yeah, no, it's a 84 Thessaloniki, another Russian victory there, but England was starting to do well at some stage.
Very well. And I think Nunn registered a 2,900 rating performance at either Thessaloniki or maybe it was no, it was Thessaloniki.
Okay. Yeah. No. I remember the English team in the 80s was sort of quite a nice team there with Nunn and Mestel and all of these guys there, and of course Dubai 86 and all of that. Well, I can tell you that at the last Olympiad, South Africa played. My fellow colleague here on the show, Calvin, managed to beat 2 grandmasters in that event. So that's some of our highlights as South Africa with the Olympiads as well. So
South Africa's become obviously grown in leaps and bounds in chess terms.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're very happy that we had some good runs as well. Calvin, I'm just going to take a break for a minute. Would you want to tell us if there are any questions in the chat box? Yep, Calvin's just got a question there for you, Victor.
Yes, we've got one question here, Victor. Is chess a sport, an art, or a science for you?
For me? Yes. For me, I think I can honestly say it's basically a Mercedes-Benz, sort of a three-pointed star of 3 equal parts. I just love the precision aspects. I'm turned on by the aesthetics. So it is an art, definitely. and the competition, the excitement matters to me. But perhaps that side has dwindled because of it's become so rusty now, and I'm getting more pleasure from endgame studies and just playing through game collections that are aesthetically pleasing rather than to help me train to make a spectacular comeback.
Mm.
Okay, thanks for that.
I do believe it's possible to make a comeback in your when you're aged over 60. It's not impossible. If the brain is still alive, you should be able to improve. And there are a couple of articles recent in the last two New in Chesses by an American, I think, saying that and there's Barry Heimer's book, ex-South African, who's an educational professor in Britain about mindset. So I guess what my message to anybody would say: don't ever think that you're over the hill. If the hunger is there, play.
Yeah, no, agreed on that one. I think the Victor, for me, people have philosophies of how to play chess, and I suppose you change as you get more experience. I mean, some of us, like I'm sure you and I were very competitive, and then we enjoy a good game just by watching it also nowadays. Would you say that you still have your competitive streak in you, to the fact that you're playing in the French league?
It was a kind of reawakening of something that I found I still enjoyed, but it wasn't frequent enough. I mean, I was intending to start playing in tournaments. I'd already paid my entry fee for Ljubljana 2020, but that was meant to be in May. But of course, March, everything shut down and got cancelled. And I came back to France because I kind of spent half the year in here now, and everyone was playing with masks, and I mean, I refuse to play without oxygen. It's just too depressing to walk into a room and everyone's sort of like this. So I've decided when things normalize, maybe I'll get back to it. But meanwhile, there's a lot of satisfactions in chess without the competition.
Yeah, understood.
And I've started writing again, as you know, for the Weekend Argus because of Nick's very sad demise. It's actually the second time I've taken over from Nick, because in 1984 in Joburg, he gave up a column for me because I'd moved to Joburg, and he said, "Oh, I've got two columns. You can have one of them." And he gave me his Chess Sunday Express column, which was the Sunday paper from the Rand Daily Mail publisher.
Right.
And so that got me started into chess articles, and then I moved to Saturday Star, and I carried on writing columns for about 7 years. And now it's nice to be doing that again, because I've got to look at the recent games and find out what South Africans are doing. And I mean, since we have this platform, my email box is always open to South African games of any standard. If I'll assess whether they're publishable.
Yeah, no, great stuff. I think this weekend, Victor, is the Western Province Open. So we will see. We've got Calvin playing there and Daniel Barish playing there and a couple of players. So hopefully we could even have some games from that tournament that we can send to you as well. So I'm sure the players will look forward to playing some good games there.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm missing it. If I were in Cape Town, I'd make even the long drive from Simonstown. I'd try and play there.
Well, we hope if you are in the country in May, the Steinitz Open will take place, and maybe you could even come participate there in the Steinitz Open in the month of May.
We'll talk.
No, super. Now, Calvin and Victor, what I'd like us to do is, Victor, you've got a few games lined up for us tonight, and I'm just wondering, Victor, is it 2 or 3 games you're going to show us?
Well, let's see how time goes.
Sure.
A lot of my games are in Cape Town, and I wasn't able to access them from old school books and PGN them. I had a few already on my computer, and so what I've chosen is I regret not particularly high class. I had some some nice wins against South African players that are probably of a better standard. But I thought the two games I'm quite fond of from the 1980 inaugural Zim Open, which was a special tournament for me because, as I said, I was organizing. I was doing club organization, organization, federation, politics, trying to hold down a respectable job at the university. And I played in the Zim Open in January. Then I played in one of the, you remember they used to have the Jan Smuts, as it was then, Airport Holiday Inn rating sections. And I played in the 2000 plus section. I played in the Twins. I came second. I played in the SA Open and PE. I was using all these opportunities as a training for the Olympiad at the end of the year. So it was very much a chess year.
Yes.
And I've got a couple of games from that tournament, which I organized and led from start to finish, and managed to eventually tie first. And as you'll see in one of the games, I let slip an outright win of the tournament.
Sure. Now that so, what is the first game that we'll look at tonight?
I think that in the fifth round, I was paired against John Barlow, who I know we've spoken about him before. He's became a correspondent GM and now lives in Durban. He was originally a South African, and he and I were leading jointly on 4 out of 4, and I played him in round 5, and that's my opportunity to show off an Alekhine.
No. Let's do that. Victor, do you want to move the pieces on your side?
Okay. Right. So now for this, I'll need my glasses. So let's have a look. Okay. So I was black. So it was round 5, and the time limit in that tournament in the glory days of slow chess was 45 moves in 2.5 hours, followed by adjournments. And I played Van Tetz in round 4 and beaten him. And then I was up against Barlow, who was, I think, reigning Zim champion. So he had the Alekhine. And I played against before. Are we online?
Yep. We're online.
And he played the 3 knight c3 line to get out of the advanced variations. I retreated the knight, and then a few standard developing moves. I like d6. I know a lot of players play d5 here, but keeping the pawn tension as part of the spirit of the Alekhine, I find. So he expands the center, natural developing moves, and then okay, he's preparing to dispose of my fianchettoed bishop. Bishop g4, at which point, with the tension around the e5 pawn, he first exchanges it.
Yep.
And plays a peculiar move, which I don't know exactly what he was hoping, maybe to regroup. He plays knight g5, which perhaps he wants to avoid a doubling and not play bishop e2 and reserve the bishop for another square. And I decided, well, he's going to have to retreat it sooner or later, so I'll ignore it. He hasn't played bishop h6 yet, so I just carried on developing.
Right.
He kicks my bishop. This was 42 years ago, so I can't tell you why I didn't play bishop f5, which looks natural. I played the bishop back.
Sure.
And okay, he admits that the knight is doing nothing. It's not going to be very valuable on e4. Castles. So sort of, I think we were kind of circling around each other because, you know, when you're in the lead of a fairly good prize money tournament, and you're playing a familiar player, you've beaten each other before, you don't like to force things straight away. So now the other knight comes to e4, which I think is an inaccuracy, as Stockfish says, because it's not eyeing any important squares, and is now going to retreat.
Well, you get a tempo as well with that bishop f5 now.
Yeah, so maybe that's the only benefit he's going to get on it, and he does temporize on it, and the bishop doesn't mind moving again. But this is where I should have played it to e6, because bishop e6, he can't advance the pawn and fork yet. He can't play c4 yet because I've got the knight and bishop both moved. If he plays b3, intending c4 and d5, I've meanwhile will have expanded on the king side, and I think let's not forget he hasn't castled yet.
Yes, yes.
So I decided not to, and at this point I decided to complicate because his king's in the center. We started getting short of time, I think around about move 20, if I remember, and John was always a deep thinker, so I was probably about 20 minutes up on the clock, and I thought, even if this is dodgy, let's just see what happens. I don't mind if it's sacking a pawn, and I play e3. Now, again, focusing on the fact that if he does double my my pawns here, the game is going to get quite complicated, but messy. And I like the Alekhine knights because if he castles queenside, my rook's already on the c file, and if he castles king file after chopping on f5, I'm going to have an open g file, and he doesn't have a black square when my king goes back. So he didn't take it. He took the pawn, which is actually what I wanted. And then obviously the queen comes here.
Yeah, you're sort of now pinning that, forcing a little.
So
one or king f2.
Yeah, he has to play king f2 because knight f1 is ugly, and in fact, if knight f1, I mean, it's a horrible move to have to play. So king f2, intending to castle artificially, and now unfortunately I play a mistake. Bishop e4 is good here. I played knight d5, thinking I'm going to put pressure on the e pawn. He plays the natural move to kick my queen back, and then again I said to castle artificially. John played rook here. He still doesn't take my bishop because he's going to open a file on his king, he thinks. But this misses a tactical point, which is that this pawn can now go. He played e4, which was a mistake because in fact, the sacrifice is not sound. Okay, the king is still in a bit of a pickle. I'm going to temporize on his queen, but after queen b3, I probably hadn't seen this far. I'm going to be looking for swindles and having to prove that the piece sack wasn't sound. So that was a moment for him, which he didn't take advantage of, and instead he played e4. I think it must have been a hallucination because he should have asked me to prove why I took the c pawn. So okay, so we carry on like this. He took with a knight, which now really suits me because he would have been better off at that point pinning, forcing me to play f5, and then it's not clear whether his king is more vulnerable than my queen.
Yeah, because I mean the bishop is pinned, and even when f5 comes, then knight takes bishop would still open up some files for you.
But the interesting thing here is that, and I told you it was a luxurious time limit of 45 and 2.5 hours, and yet because of that luxury, people still got into hectic time trouble, and John was a specialist in this. So he must have analyzed a lot of lines and started hallucinating, and so he took the bishop, and now this is very good for black. So undeservedly, considering the fact that the pawn sack was dodgy and the bishop sack was definitely unsound. And here he played bishop c4. And what he misses is that I don't have to move the queen. Because if you look at this pattern, his royal family is a knight move away. So I was able to play that. And now black is actually doing nicely.
So one of the questions, Victor, and knight f6 is a great move in this position. Question that I had is, instead of bishop c4,
yes.
could he have played bishop d3?
Bishop
d3.
Bishop d3, I think, well, I'm a pawn up already now. I think I'm going to...
Yeah, just offer the exchange of queens. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah. He can, of course, try and win back his pawn like this with bishop a6.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what Stockfish thinks of that. It still thinks black is slightly better. But that's a whole different game. But I after bishop c4, knight here, I think I'm doing fine. And he should just retreat his king now. So there's no fork anymore. And then I do have to move my queen. But
yeah.
Now he had a very strange idea, and I can't remember what it was. He played g4, maybe intending to kick the knight, thinking that I'd leave my queen here. But this is bad now, because I can now climb in, and the fork is still on. He has nothing. Well, this knight takes d4 is probably better here, after which I would play rook takes bishop. Stockfish seems to want knight check now. King here or here, I'm not sure. No, let's try that. And then there's a fork here and a fork there, but it doesn't matter because, yeah, I mean, this would have been quite hairy to play in time trouble, but certainly chances for both sides to make mistakes. And instead, he took with the queen, and now really I have no problems. It's a question of converting the one game. He swapped, take. He defends the knight, and then consolidate the rook. He played here, and then by now we were probably both in our last 15, well, in John's case, maybe 10 minutes, and mine 15 or 20 minutes. This is not the best move, but this king is exposed, and the end game is, what is 2 pawns. I'm not going to hang on to both of them, but the moves are, okay, at this point, they're neither scientific nor aesthetic. So it's not a science or an art, it's more of a competition. And we're starting to make mistakes. I could have simply have moved the rook along here, but and here he blunders because he's given, after this check, and he should escape with the king, but he came the other way. He's given me a situation where there's a knight fork here on c5 and a knight fork on f2.
Yes.
So he took there, my rook is now attacked, and here moving it away I think would be virtually resignable for him, but I actually was probably starting to get short of time. Inaccuracy there, giving up a sizable part of black's advantage. Rook on the 7th, as always, giving up this pawn. The king comes back. Now he can't take the b pawn because of the fork on c5 again.
It's a favorite little square there that you've...
The favorite square, yeah. The Atacama knights are usually on b6 and c6, but c5 is not out of bounds, eh? So
yeah.
He plays this discovered attack on my knight. I can take it, but there are enough pawns now for things to go go well. And basically, a couple of moves later, he resigned. There was nothing for
Sure.
him. Yeah.
No, so I mean, some nice little moves there that you conjured up. I mean, that pawn to e4 to e3 must have been a moment of inspiration there, Victor.
It was a moment of misguided. It was instinct, misguided by faulty analysis. Because let's face it, it wasn't perfectly sound. But one has to bear in mind that I was the main organizer. I was basically playing as well without any great aspirations to prize money, because I was more committed to the whole system and the federation and everything. But I suddenly found myself after this game to be leading with 5 out of 5.
Sure.
I'd been playing, as I played Fantetz in round 4, then Barlow, and then I find I was paired consecutively against 7 2,200 plus players from or 2,100 plus from Fantetz onwards. And in round 6, I drew with Donnelly. Round 7, I drew with Albersberg. Round 8, I drew with Rubery. And by that stage, Roger Shakis had caught up with me, and we were on 6.5 out of 8.
Right.
The second game I'm going to show you
is
the final round game. Roger had been, as you know, he was even before Donald McFarlane, he was a chess prodigy, probably the first chess prodigy after the Bloch de Villiers era. He'd won, he was the reigning champion from the 1979 Rhodesian Open, where he'd beaten Simon LeBlanc in the last round. And here I'm playing him after having had full 5-hour games in a row. So final round, Roger plays his favorite d4, and I decide I'm tired. I'm a weaker player than him. I'm going to mimic his moves and see what he does first.
Okay.
So symmetrical position, c4 natural move, and now I break the symmetry. I'm sure we're in book here, but it's a week-long tournament with not much sleep, and I didn't have time to look at any books. But I think Queen b6 is a natural move. You want to, the double pawns don't worry black. He develops. This is now my first attempt to do something interesting. Probably rook d8 is a more solid move, and say to white, I've been waiting for you. What have you got to show me? But, I took the pawn, and here I toyed with the idea of queen a6, because I thought he's going to want to win and retain his title, and I must keep a solid position. But I got tempted by the idea of attacking his queen, and here he played queen a4, d3, and then the e4 push is probably best, but there's nothing wrong with this move. On the other hand, there is probably something wrong with my move. I should probably just develop and keep control of the d5 square, which is going to be important, especially when e4 is coming. But anyway, I decided to play c5 and get a better square for my knight. He takes. Now he repays the compliment of attacking the queen from king 3, and these bishops are bearing down on my queen side. I've got to have place somewhere. If I defend here, there's an open c file. I thought this is going to be bread and butter for Roger, so I needed to create an imbalanced position. He finds one of the little creeping queen moves that I'm sure I hadn't seen, that attacks 2 of my pawns, the b and e pawns. I'm going to lose one of them, but tough. Let's mix things. I'm not threatening anything here, but if the bishop ever comes to d5, it's going to
have some threats there. Yep.
The knight. So he's in no hurry. He preserves the bishop pair. And then I know it's fashionable nowadays to give up your fianchettoed bishop, and I've seen games with Caruana does it. I can't say he got the idea from me because I've never met him, but I decided to play an awful bishop move here, which gives white basically a one game, but at least a complicated game. And the complications pay off.
Okay.
Capturing with a b pawn is far better. He keeps the threats. I'm undeveloped. He's got a beautiful position. And so what if there's an isolated pawn? But by taking with the queen and eyeing this long diagonal, the pressure's off on the pawn loss. And I complete my development. And then let's see what he does. Okay, he doesn't like my knight here because now my bishop can come to d5. Fair enough, I retreat. And again,
although it looks natural to take with a queen.
Although, sorry?
No, I'm saying that although the capture with the queen on c3 looks natural.
It does, but it's the b pawn is definitely right, because I mean there's this. He's eyeing 2 pawns. He's got an open file against my b pawn. I can't play b6 because of this killer bishop on the long white diagonal. So
okay,
yeah, I'm still alive after queen takes. I'm probably not against Roger's technique after b take, but fortunately it didn't look natural to him. So he kicks my knight back, and then strangely decides to attack my queen again, when there's nothing wrong with knight here. If I take the pawn, I think I'm in big trouble. I think I'm in big trouble because I'm going to have to allow him to mess things up. And the bishop pair against 2 knights. This is the kind of position, and I'm glad we're analyzing this because this theme will recur. This is the kind of position where a bishop pair will kill 2 knights. And remember, they're not Alekhine knights because he played 1 d4.
Yes.
So he decided to play g4, which is fine. I decided I'm happy to swap queens now. And he played, interestingly, b3 to hold the c4 square. Nothing wrong with it, but probably not necessary precaution. I get the c file first. He contests it.
Yep.
And okay, as I said, they're not Alekhine knights, but Strugo likes knights. So he learned about knights in the Alekhine. So he starts the knight ballerinas sort of waltzing into the center. The bishop kicks one of them, it goes back. And now comes the natural move here. And what do? This bishop can't move because the knight would be loose. Keep activating knights. Obviously, there's a threat of knight takes e2 with a fork, which he isn't going to allow. Simply rook fe1. Swaps is natural. He takes with the bishop. And I could, I suppose, at this point have played this, eyeing the a pawn and the e pawn, but I think it's an illusion because after bishop here, I can take, but instinctively you think, oh, these 2 knights are alone and they're floating, something's going to give.
Yeah.
Something's going to give, and you'll still have 2 bishops. So I didn't play that. I swapped bishop and then activated the second rook. He plays bishop here. Now, these knights are traveling a lot. They got a lot of visas to visit many different squares. And then this apparently ugly position, which is a pawn structure that, as you know, Lyndon, sometimes occurs in some of the variations of the Alekhine, of the modern variation of the Alekhine. And these e-pawns control and defend a lot of important squares. So I wasn't worried about this. And frankly, now we have the kind of position where are two bishops stronger than two knights? To me, it's not at all clear. I see the Stockfish calls it virtually equal at 0.3 evaluation. But let's see how the game transpires. Roger kicks. I activate. And the knights have got a lot of, they're not cramped. And I think I was happy playing this at that point. We're on approaching move 30, and I can't remember the clocks, but they were fairly advanced. Roger's a faster player than me by a long shot, so I was probably the one in time trouble, or approaching time trouble, but not yet. The knights have got a lot of squares, and at this point, made the interesting decision to not retreat it to G3 or H2, because then the other one comes in actively, and he decided to give it up, which is interesting because suddenly the two bishops have admitted, if you like, a mini defeat, that they aren't going to wipe the
board,
against two less mobile knights. And I'm eyeing the B pawn. Roger defended it, but he should probably have activated it with rook d1. Let me take it. And he gets the ugly doubled e pawn first. And he's active. I don't think I'm losing, but it was probably a better line for him. But he decides to forego the active play. Where are we? After this take, he actually meekly defends the b pawn. Now I was very happy. I thought, okay. And at this point, sorry, it was actually at this point, after this exchange, I offered a draw. I thought it's psychologically good because he's going to have to, and maybe that's what made him decide to cling to the pawn and then see what I'm going to do. He activates here. My king defends and is quite safe here for the time being. And he plays f4, which is a mistake. He should just first play king f3.
Yeah, of course.
And then let's see what he's going to do. So f4 comes. I'm quite happy to take it. King f2 is now really starting to get. He's starting to lose the plot. King g2 forces me to play here, and then it's time really to activate the rook and play to d1. But king f2, I'm not sure what he thought he was going to be doing, but at this point I decided I'd play g5, which was misguided. The knight's begging to come here and curtail the king's mobility, but I thought if this wrecks his pawns, my king's coming here. I didn't feel there was any danger of me losing, and I was short of time.
Yeah.
But he wants to keep the game alive and makes his own bishop bad. All his pawns are on white squares now.
Sure.
It's funny what you do in the final round. I think this game is psychologically interesting. The final round of a tournament, you're the reigning champion, and you play a move like that, it's you know, you're not yourself in psychologically stressed situations. So he wins the pawn. At this stage, wins back the h pawn, and after this, he's basically lost. I'm in no hurry. I could have taken here with check, but I decided, I think, or maybe now there's only 7 moves to go. I think I was in the last 5 minutes of my time.
Right.
And now, again, I should have taken this pawn, and for some reason, I played the rook there, which is a disappointing move, because he basically at this point handed the tournament to me on a plate. King here, rook there. These 2 passed pawns are going to run. The bishop is totally cut off from guarding the advanced squares, and again, the psychology now applies to both players. We were desperate not to lose. He'd offered a draw 5 moves after me, and I turned it down. And I now know I'm playing for the win, but I'm not sure how to do it. So again, I capture with the rook. The knight capture is far better. He checks here. And now he's okay, because we have a funny situation. Normally, a perpetual check or a move repetition is something that one side does to the other. And here we have a little dance where he checks me and attacks a pawn. I have to go back. And if I check him and he plays, I have nothing better than to check him again. So at this point, a draw was agreed. We both played some enterprising chess. We both played some, according to Stockfish, 1 blunder each and 2 mistakes each. So a draw was a fair result. And as a result, we ended up both on 7 out of 9. And lo and behold, guess what happened to our prize money? We were joined by 4 more players who also caught up on 7 out of 9. It was 6-way tie for first.
Well, but Victor, thank you for this game. I mean, but as Victor says, prodigy in that time, and yeah, we can see some of his games, and that's the beauty of the show, that we are able to see some of these players of that time in action, and the strengths of their game. So, Victor, thank you very much for this. Victor, we're now running close to 10 past 8.
Yes.
We have 2 questions in the chat box. Let's quickly take those 2 questions before we sign off. Calvin? Okay. I can't see the questions because I'm still on the lead chess one, Calvin.
Okay, so we've got 2 questions from Lekwa. I see you are back with Saturday Star, but are you writing for France? This is for Victor.
No, I am not with Saturday Star because I live in Cape Town now when I'm in South Africa. I'm with Weekend Argus. And no, I'm not writing for France, although I am fluent in French. French is my home language, but they don't know me here, so there's no reason why they're going to ask me to write. They've also got a hell of a lot of stronger players who can probably annotate top games more accurately than I can.
Sure.
Okay, there we have it. And thanks, Victor. And then the last question we have is, can we expect a book from you anytime soon?
I've often thought about that, but I think I'm too lazy. And I'm not sure that I've got enough interesting history to record. And certainly, I'm not strong enough to write an instructional book. But one never knows. One never knows.
You never know.
Something in the future. We have one prolific writer whose face is on the screen at the moment. So strength to his arm. Let him carry on with all the writing.
No, Victor, thank you very much, and thank you for the questions there. Victor, from my side, thank you very much for agreeing to be part of the show tonight. You added to the history of Southern African chess, and I think that's important. And also, there are many players from all over Africa that watch the show both live and on YouTube when Calvin puts it on, normally a few days later. And I get lots of comments, and I'm sure tonight's one with you giving some of the history of Zimbabwean chess there, that will also have many viewers going there. So Victor, from my side, thank you very much to you and to Calvin and to Jock. Thanks, Victor.
Well, thanks for letting me be on the show. I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Lyndon. Thanks, Calvin.
Yes, also from my side, thank you so much, Victor, for taking your time out to join us this evening. It was an absolute pleasure going back into time and seeing some of your experiences. So now just last question to Dr. Boa. Who are we seeing next week on Reflections?
Next week, we have confirmed Dr. Omar Eso, who is well-known in South African chess, and Dr. Eso will be telling us about his chess journey with Manyanani Chess Club from the 1970s onwards to what he's doing nowadays within the university and other sectors and the school sector. So we look forward to seeing Dr. Eso next week as well. Victor, thank you very much for everything. I'll be in touch with you, and I'll try to get you some games from that Western Province Open as well. Good luck, Calvin, for the weekend.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
We never, Lyndon, we never got to play when I came back to South Africa and played in the Unity tournament that we both played in '91. So maybe in a future tournament, we'll actually face each other.
I look forward to that. I look forward to that. Enjoy. See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye. Bye.